Welcome to Heal the World Show podcast, brought to you by the Healing Institute. I'm Parmelia Parham. I'm the founder of the Healing Institute. We are an online worldwide hub of holistic practitioners. We really want to make a difference on health and healing in the world. And the reason that I created this community of healers, and we want to be available for all of you who are looking for alternative ways of healing, is because it's so important for us to be looking at holistic ways to be well and stay well. I've actually used that in my life for over 30 years, so I know that it works. And the other reason that I created the Healing Institute was really to give people support. We had a tragedy in our family a few years ago where my mom passed away at a very young age. She was only 61, and I was 5 months pregnant with my son. And it was not just a tragedy that she died young, but also that my children did not get to meet their grandmother. And I really don't want that happening for other families. So the Healing Institute, I specifically called it an institute because I'm passionate about educating people around how to be well and how to stay well on our health journey, because we are all on a health journey. So it's September already, and I have decided the theme for September for our podcast is Splendid September. Or September is Splendid. So that's our theme. Today is our 104th episode. We've been doing this podcast for over 2 years. And I am just so delighted to have Kelly Ratzlaff with us today. She has been amazing. I've been working with her for, probably 9 months now. I think we connected back in January. And so, we're going to be really talking about Splendid September and what that means. And specifically, our topic is how our sovereignty, our individual sovereignty, leads to splendor. So, Kelly, welcome. I'm just so delighted to have you here today. Just tell us a little bit about you and where you are in the world. People like to know that.
Thank you so much, Parmelia. It's such an honor and joy to be here with you. We always have such a great, deep, juicy, joy-filled conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm actually in Eugene, Oregon, of all places. So Pacific Northwest girl, native, born and raised, and I feel just so honored and thankful to be here because it's such a beautiful area of the world and we have so much wonderful diversity here and I love spending as much time in nature as I can get. And for those of us that are Pacific Northwestern oriented, we tend to be really nature, really outdoorsy, and spending our time hiking and gardening and with our feet in the dirt, and that just feels so good. It just builds so much deep connection and allows us to really know how much more supported we are in partnership with Mother Earth than I think that we sometimes think about in the modern busy life, schedule that we often lead. So,
And because I live on the west coast of Canada, I feel like, we're neighbors.
yeah, we
Um,
are neighbors.
and because we also describe ourselves as living in the northwest
Mhm.
of the continent. And I wanted to acknowledge that we have Marie Piplovic here with us today. Marie is one of our holistic practitioners on the Healing Institute website. And she's in Portland, Oregon. So we're all neighbors today, which is
We are
beautiful. Yeah.
Northwest representing this morning.
Absolutely, yes. And Marie said she loves that intention that we set earlier to honor self. It's what I'm finally looking at with how my path and her business evolves and blooms. So yes, and for people who don't quite know, Marie is a fantastic conscious breathing facilitator, and she also really helps people who are feeling that they're burnt out. They've maybe been in a corporate position for a number of years, and it's not fulfilling them anymore. So yes, definitely connect with Marie because she's amazing. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how the sovereignty that we have as humans, as individuals, and how we can honor that with our own divine frequency. So Kelly, I know you have some beautiful words of wisdom the way you explain it. So I'm just gonna turn it over to you to explain how that goes with what the work that you're doing with people.
Yeah, I've just found that sovereignty is such an important key to our own healing and to the embodiment of our divinity. And that I feel like it's a subject that really isn't covered often when we're talking about healing, when we're talking about um, self-mastery,
Mhm.
through the path of knowing ourselves in a deeper way and allowing that to be expressed through us. And sovereignty is one of those things that um, somehow gets set aside in the healing and spiritual communities as though it weren't the actual foundation for the acceleration of that journey. And so that's why I focus on it so much, is because I feel like it's just not talked about a lot and it's kind of misunderstood. And how I define sovereignty is it's a personal self-honoring field. It's
Mhm.
a field that you're generating through your own heart space that is intended to nourish and uplift you and connect you deeper to your soul essence while honoring the sovereignty of others. So, the
Yes.
way to build a self honoring field and to build a really intentional container for directing your free will. This is your divine birthright. This is who you are as a soul being. And if we're not in a sovereign space, we're usually either moving into wanting to control others or allowing others to control
Yeah.
us. And it can even be in very subtle ways, people pleasing, codependency patterns that we find ourselves in with something as simple as, your partner asking you, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, I don't know, whatever you want is fine. No, is that really true? Or are you just not wanting to engage because you don't want to ruffle the feather? There
Hmm.
are times where literally you don't care. And there are times where maybe you would like something specific, but you're not asking for it because you're holding some sort of other story in your body that says, maybe I shouldn't ask for it, or if I ask for it, I won't get it, or
Oh,
whatever that story
that
is.
was definitely how I was taught as a child. Yes, if
And
you
we
if
do it so often. And it's, like I said, it can be really subtle. But over time, it continues to kind of suppress our true nature and
Mhm.
suppress our desires and suppress our expression, and all in an effort to just kind of get by, just kind of not, make any waves.
Which
I
is
don't
really how we're
understand that.
programmed,
Yeah.
especially as women. We're programmed not to make waves. We're
hmm
programmed to just
But
do.
then unintentionally, we end up just not even honoring ourselves at
Mm.
all in that equation.
Yes.
And then learning how to self honor again and include ourselves in the equation can be a really challenging um, path ahead of us because we've been in that pattern of not
Mhm.
even thinking about what maybe our own need is in that moment, or our own emotional, you know, um, frequency, whatever that is. And so I think sovereignty is so key. It's really that self honoring and self nurturing, and saying, you know what? What's not mine is not mine, and what is mine I claim and I take responsibility for, and that is what I'm going to work with, and that's what I'm going to build from. And I'm going to honor and love myself, and I'm going to honor and love others, even if that looks different than what I think it should look like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because everybody's already divinely guided in ways that they can't know, in ways we don't know about ourselves. How could we possibly assume that we know that about other people?
Well, and that's why I love the word sovereignty,
Mhm.
because it's like a container. We're a container of this is who we are. And from a divine spiritual uh, connotation,
Well,
which
we have
we,
a crown chakra for a reason.
yes,
There's
and
a
we don't.
reason it's a crown chakra. Put the
That's,
crown on.
yes. And we don't always engage in that either. We do when we go on, podcasts like this, we will have those kinds of conversations, but in just ordinary daily life, that's not necessarily something that we would have a conversation about to somebody. But
Right.
in yourself, knowing that you are honoring yourself and your own sovereignty, so therefore in honoring yourself, you are going to honor other people. To be
Yes.
consciously aware of that, I think is really a great step forward for sure.
Well, let's talk about how sovereignty is part of the intentional foundation and role of honoring full unity consciousness. This is
And I
claiming
think
your
that's
own power.
Yeah.
and honoring other people's power. And so that's still within unity. It's still fully within the law of one.
Hmm.
It's not outside of that at all. And what it is it's a field that you are working with that's helping you deprogram the old patterns and old beliefs around victim, savior, aggressor models,
Right.
and
Right.
helps to disentangle those narratives and those archetypes from our psyche so that we can start to understand that we are all the victim, we are all the aggressor, we are all the savior. We have played all of the roles.
Yeah. Then we can choose not to play
And
those
then we
roles.
just step out of that diagram entirely and start operating from a place of sovereignty, of deep love, and wanting to respect and honor others as well as ourselves and not leave ourselves out of the equation. Because as those who have been, working in the healing world
Yeah.
actively and are deeply in service, we have a tendency, especially towards self-sacrifice, which is
Yeah.
not sovereignty.
No, exactly. So Maria has a great question. Can you help to describe or give an example of how sovereignty integrates with having boundaries that
Mhm.
are also honoring of self and others? And I
Yes.
ask this because of the movement toward the idea of oneness and no boundaries, which I think is somewhat confusing. Great
Right.
question.
Man, that's a whole container to unpack there. Yes, so as we're honoring our own individual sovereignty and building our own field of sovereignty and natural law with unity consciousness, we are not separating out from the whole, we're going deeper within. So it's
Yes.
not an externalized process, this is an internalized process that begins to recognize that deeper connection of all. So it's so we are not judging anything. We're moving from a place of judgment into curiosity and discernment. So the
Yeah, there's a
discernment
big
is just
difference
choosing
between.
this feels the most aligned to me. I'm not judging anybody else for any other stories or any other choices. And so it's dissolving the judgment, the idea of self and other, but really reinforcing the idea and the need for personal discernment, which is just your own attunement to your own intuition, your own divinity, your own heart path. And so we're not dividing or separating out. We are teaching others what it looks like to be sovereign so that they can begin to know that and model that in their own lives. And through all of that, we become more unified and more in that
Right.
divine flow as a species. Almost like I just saw like a flock of birds all flying in unison together, and it that's what happens when we surrender to our divine essence as a community. We start to move in synchronicity and flow to create that which we desire to see for ourselves and our neighbors and our beautiful world. And so it's not a matter of a boundary. A healthy boundary helps to teach other people where boundaries need to lay and how they can generate their own sovereign light, their own energy, their own divinity through their own body, and not plug into you and you're not plugging into them. So it dismantles that tendency towards a parasitic relationship we have with each other that's been based in that codependency and people pleasing and not having that boundary in place simply because we didn't even know.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
haven't even had the conversation in our modern time a lot around the fact that we are energy beings and we are being, we're in a soup of moving energies all the time. And some of those frequencies are going to be more loving and some of them are going to be more in separation consciousness. So, what are we engaging with? And what's ours versus what's being projected onto us? One of the biggest challenges most of us are moving through when we start working with our sovereignty is disconnecting from the collective field because the collective field is going to be the one that's got the most trauma
Yes.
attached to it and is the most wired within a separation consciousness. So we even have to break away from the collective to build our own divine light and then be available to support our community with that. We're not actually separating out, we're teaching what that self honoring field and self responsibility looks like and what that personal empowerment looks like in a very loving and respectful way while not dictating to others how they're supposed to be living or how we think they
Well,
should be living,
and
whatever
I
that
think
looks
that's the key as well.
like. Mhm.
Um, because often, when we have been, what we've been taught perhaps is that you're, I think a certain way, it's right. You think a certain way, your way is wrong, my way is right. So,
Right.
so, and that's really so much of that is going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
So
If
it would,
everybody would just think like me, we could all get along.
yeah, exactly. So embracing our own individual, embracing that the sovereignty around respecting who we are and what our, I also believe that as we set our own boundaries with love,
Yes.
we teach other people not only what our boundaries are, but we give them an example of what their boundaries could look like,
Well,
as well.
only leadership is leadership by
Yeah.
example. If you're not leading by example, you're not leading.
But
You're
people, I
you might
think,
have the story of you're leading because you still think you're in control, but that's not
yeah,
actually
no,
leadership.
that's not me.
That's enslavement of your community. That's not partnership.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, the word leadership, as individuals, we don't often embrace that,
Mhm.
um, because it might feel like, or we may have the description of leadership as something that is something we don't feel we're up for, like we don't have the talent, or we don't have the skill set to be in leadership. But there's various types of leadership.
Mhm.
So by setting up your own personal boundaries, you are actually you are actually in leadership by doing that, by teaching other people this is what you will accept and what you won't.
Well,
um
and you're also building your own energy field. You're building out your
yes.
own energy body, you're building out your own org field, you're self-sustaining in a way that is actually working with Mother Earth and the toroidal field around your own frequency. And so as you're practicing leaning into the divinity of your sovereignty and that natural birthright that is within all humans, that was a gift from the creator of all that is, great spirit, source, whatever the universe, whatever you want to call it, doesn't care. It's not hung up on language like we are. It's so incredible because when we begin that sovereign path, it feels really disconcerting.
Yeah.
It feels like we're abandoning people we
Mhm.
love, and so the first steps in building that feel really uncomfortable, especially because all of that belief that we are responsible for other people, or that we don't want them to feel abandoned, as each of us have felt in various times and places in this lifetime and beyond. Like we know what that feels like. Each one of us have that wound. It's part of the collective. So when we begin to build that self-honoring field and self-nurturing field, it can feel like we're literally leaving the people we love behind.
And as healers, we don't want to, we don't
Makes it
want to
even
do that.
trickier to
Yeah,
navigate that
even, yeah,
process.
yeah, yeah.
And
Marie's
yeah,
got
leaning into love in that way where it's self-love. I love a friend of mine years ago gave the analogy of we want to give from our saucer and not our cup.
yes, I love that
I
analogy.
love that, right? Isn't that the best image of what that looks like to say, okay, when my cup is full and I'm overflowing, that's the perfect time for me to be generous with my community. When my cup is drained, that's a sign that I need to spend more time honoring my own needs right now. And that doesn't make me selfish. That means that I love myself enough. I'm not going to separate myself off from my world. I'm not going to separate myself off and say that I don't matter,
Right.
right? That my needs don't matter, that I don't have the same rights to exist and be joyful and be nourished and be abundant that everybody else has.
So Marie's made a great comment here that she relates to the disconnecting from the collective field. And
Mhm.
I think those of us that are in the energy, the world of energy and understand how energy works. And of course, we really do need to uh, educate other people about energy and about their own energy and their energy field. And I mean, I've been doing that for over 20 years. So that's so important because very many, I still think sort of mainstream society doesn't understand how that all works.
Well,
Um,
it's kind of fascinating too, because everything that we're experiencing in modern society now has been normalized, but none of it is normal. The
so
idea that we
true.
aren't spirit beings, that's only been a concept that's been around for 100, 150 years, maybe globally, like
Yeah.
at all. Before that, it would have never occurred to anybody on the planet that we weren't spirit first.
Yeah.
That was just the natural knowingness that we were in until we evolved as a species into the density where we became a little obsessed with physicality, a little over mentalized, and kind of shun what we couldn't see or measure in the physical sciences. But that doesn't mean it never existed. It just means that we don't have the technological capability of knowing how to define that. And of course, we wouldn't because technology isn't designed for that. Our divine biology is.
Yes,
If you want to connect
absolutely.
with spirit, you go within. This
Yes,
is your direct
it's
conduit.
as
That
they
is your direct
say,
conduit.
it's an
Yeah.
inside job.
It's an inside job, and your body is already divine. It's the temple with which you go in to worship the truth of who you are. Not worship yourself through ego.
No.
Worship the divine nature of who you are as a spirit being who is always timeless and eternal.
And I think that's also where we need to we need to explain the definition in more detail for people, because I know I was raised that if I did anything for myself, that was being selfish and self-centered. So that was a huge paradigm shift that I had to make for myself personally, and not feel like I was being selfish if I was honoring myself to do whatever that might be, whatever that might look like. But we're still on the path of educating people about that. So
Yes.
Maria's got another great comment here. She said, wow, you just hit it. The uncomfortable feeling of abandoning others.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's
again,
what it
as
feels like.
women, we're taught that we are the people, we are the species that is supposed to be not abandoning other
Well, and
people.
this is a pattern of learning to not abandon yourself.
Yes.
Right? So the pattern has been I abandon myself because somebody else needs something, or somebody else has a
Yeah.
story that's more heartbreaking than my story. So therefore, they deserve my energy, and and it doesn't matter what my need is. So right? So it's really learning to include ourselves in the equation. It's only
Absolutely. Yeah.
selfish if you don't actually care about anybody else, right?
But
That's
yourself.
selfish. To
Yes.
honor yourself can never be
Yeah.
selfish unless you're moving it to the direction of forcing your will onto everybody else,
Yeah.
which is
Yes.
again not honoring their sovereignty. So
Another great comment that Marie has is, it sounds like humanity lost their remembrance of who they really are.
that's
That
exactly what's
is
happened. And we
so
agreed to
true.
that. That
Yeah.
was part of the evolutionary agreement we made as souls to discover ourselves in all ways, to know ourselves in all ways, to know ourselves in a state of separation, which is not our natural state. Like we honestly can't even fathom it when we're in our soul essence because we know we're all one. We know it's a collective. We know, you're an expression of me, I'm an expression of you. We're both cells in the same body of the universe. And when those cells can come together in unity, it doesn't mean all the cells do all the exact same job in the body. They each have their own unique job, they each have their own unique gifts. But when those cells are healthy and functioning in unity and honoring their unique gifts, the body is super healthy. That is what it means to be holistic, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The whole body together.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
We look
Not
at the whole
separating everything
body.
off
Yeah.
anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Well, this has just been such a rich and juicy conversation, Kelly. I just love it. We are nearly to the end of our 30 minutes, which it always surprises me how fast it goes. So thank you again so much for being part of our podcast today. And I love listening to you. You have such a way of putting the words together. It's like I could just, sort of sit at your feet and listen to you talk all day.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you before we wrap it up
Yeah.
briefly, like because you and I have been in this beautiful experiment with each other for about 9 months, as you
Mm.
know, I am in the process of birthing a new gift of service in my community, and that is weaving my intuitive coaching and strategy experience and background with shamanic healing that is transmutative meditation and ignition. And what I love about the shamanic journey of it, as you know, because we did this together yesterday, is that I take you in a little journey and you're doing the work. You're
Yes.
having that direct experience. You're not passive in that. You're engaged and active in that healing process and that ignition with your guides or whatever is being asked in that moment that we're guided through. And that's been such a beautiful way for us to unlock more
Yes.
of the divinity and more of the trust, it feels like, in your body. And I've seen you clear out so many shadow contracts in the last 9 months and so much responsibility that you were carrying that was never yours.
So much responsibility, yes, that I was taking on as being mine,
Yeah, you
and
were
it wasn't
literally
mine.
holding the world of the Healing Institute on your shoulders. And thinking, I got to do this alone. And you and I both know there's nothing that we can't do it alone. That never existed. But it's been so beautiful for me to be able to see a little bit of that transition in the months that we've been working together. And I just wondered if there's something you would define about that experience, because it has been a beautiful little experiment we've had together.
Well, certainly, just for people to know, so Kelly and I meet once a month. Usually the process goes for, or our meeting together, our time together usually goes 2 hours because, as you can see, there's a lot to unpack. Um, and I would say that it's really, your guidance around that has really helped me define my role as the leader with the Healing Institute. Because as you mentioned earlier, there was a lot that I was taking on that I thought that was that was how I should lead.
Mhm.
And in more being more uh, uh, retrospective and being fine with discussions with you, being a little more clear about this is the piece that I love to do as the founder of the Healing Institute, but that is not the end all and the be all. So by embracing our practitioners, letting them do some leading, which has been wonderful because they're all leaders as well. Um,
Right.
and then also putting in my boundaries. So there were some practitioners I said goodbye to, because they there wasn't it wasn't weren't being congruent anymore for whatever reason, and there was no
Mhm.
judgment here. It was just, and it was a decision that we made together.
Mhm.
um and now I'm just really feeling, although we're still a small group on the platform, we're very mighty. So there's lots that is happening, and we're reaching out globally in different directions and other directions that I hadn't consciously thought, that we would do. But it's wonderful and beautiful that, how our practitioners are really being able to engage with other communities globally. So we've been called to do that as well, which is wonderful. Yeah.
And do you think that if you had held that same structure energetically of feeling like you had to carry all of that, that this newly defined acknowledge of your leadership and the celebration of the leadership within your community would be here in the way that you're experiencing it now?
No, I know for sure it wouldn't. I know for sure it wouldn't. It appeared that, as soon as I realized that it wasn't my sole responsibility, which intellectually I had already done about a year ago, realized that. But energetically, the conversations that you and I have and the sessions that you and I have and having for the last 9 months has really helped me do that from an energetic point of view. So I'm very grateful, very, very grateful. So
Preparing the temple,
Maria's a couple more
sovereign temple.
comments. Yeah. She says, thank you, sovereign ladies. Well, thank you. You're
Yay.
so
Thank you,
sovereign,
Marie.
beautiful. And you must feel a lot of relief. Our roots are spreading. Absolutely. Yes, we are spreading into
And with
many.
ease, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
force things in the same way you thought you did
You know,
before.
they're showing up. They're just
Yeah.
we're attracting them without even really consciously thinking that we're attracting. They're just coming. They're showing up. They're coming to us, which is beautiful.
Because you're building the container. And that magnetism is growing because you're nourishing that field and not from a level of over responsibility,
That's
from a
right.
place of more sovereignty.
Yeah. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you.
So we'll just touch on one more thing before we wrap because I want to honor Splendid September
Yes. Okay.
because you and I know I looked a little bit into the etymology of splendid, and it is actually originally rooted in a Latin word that means to shine.
Ah, yes. All right.
And so what we're really entering into in September is a deeper and broader invitation to shine.
To shine. Yes.
May
Love
we
that.
all shine brighter, and may we
Yes.
remember that none of the stars in the sky dim any of the other stars.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I know we had chatted about that and then I forgot to mention it. So I'm glad that you remembered. And yes, so we're shining in September.
In
It's
September.
also my birthday month, so I'm really
Ooh,
excited.
happy birthday.
September is always very special to me. I've spoken to a number of people recently, and it's like almost like we feel this is the new year. This is the beginning of the new year of the year, not January.
Well,
Um,
harvest season. This
yeah,
is where we, honor what we've been developing for the last year, right? Where we start to really recognize how different is your world now from where it was this time last year.
yeah, very different. Yeah,
Yeah.
very different.
In beautiful ways.
And beautiful. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wouldn't want anything changed. So we want to just let people know who's listening to the podcast or watching the podcast that our vision as a community is to, with expert health practitioners, we really want to assist you with your health and healing. And we customize whatever you need to you. So it's not a one size fits all. As I mentioned earlier, all of our practitioners are holistic practitioners. And so they look at you and they whatever your health concern is, they're going to relate whatever they're going to help you with the healing specifically to your health concern. Our motto is service with love. And we have a big ask. So for those of you who are watching and listening, please tell your community, your family, and tell your colleagues about the Healing Institute and about our amazing holistic practitioners that are on the Healing Institute. And you got to meet another fabulous healer today, Kelly Ratzlaff. Thank you again so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.